Good. Okay, a couple of announcements early on. We've got a pretty good program tonight. We've got our typical police report. I'm trying to do this ad hoc. This is really interesting. And then we're going to have community engagement from two different aspects tonight. Maybe we'll get a bunch of questions answered for us. Can everybody hear okay? In the room, we're good? Everybody in the audience, good?
Yes.
Please use chat if you want to add any comments. I think we're good to go. I have made up a survey. I'm going to be sending it out by email just to make sure we're going down the right path. And for those of you in the room, I'll hand out the survey and you can either fill it out tonight or just get it to me. But it's going to get emailed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's do our first part of our business. Let's do our police report. And tonight we have Matthew Winkle. Officer Winkle. Yeah, why don't you just, I think that's what we're gonna do.
Well, I will kind of.
We're winging it.
Yes. I do believe Captain Tomczak is online. So if you have any questions, he can probably answer those in the chat room for y'all. First of all, it's wonderful being in person. As convenient as it was to be in my police car in my driveway in North Raleigh, I do enjoy the in-person meetings much more. So this is a wonderful time. I do ask that you take one of my cards that are out on the table. If there's something specific that you want in this meeting, please email me. This is your meeting. I work here for you guys, with you guys. So it really helps me out in planning these meetings. So we're going to kind of follow the same format as what we did online. Hopefully we can in the future kind of build this up from just reading a couple of numbers to actually meaningful data and conversation. So my big data point that I focus on is calls for service, because that really tells you how hard your police officers are working in your area. So over the last 30 days, we answered just a smidgen over 1,800 calls for service in the Midtown CAC. So officers are humping it in your area. That's about a third as what North CAC was doing as far as calls for service over the same 30-day period. And your CAC is much more compact than theirs. So typically what we're responding to are assaults, larcenies, and larcenies are kind of large because you do have some retail shops in your location. So that's going to kind of reflect in your numbers. And larceny from motor vehicles. We can't harp on this enough. There's such thing as a crime triangle. You need one of these. You need just one of these three things to be absent in order to prevent crime, and that's desire, ability, and opportunity. So I'm urging you all to just take away that opportunity for criminals and lock your car doors. As far as incident reports, miscellaneous reports, that's always going to top the list as far as what we take. Those can be anything from, well, I need documentation that my neighbor's dog is barking too much, or it could be just my neighbor said something that I don't like, but it's not a communicating threat type level. So those, we took 60 incident reports over the miscellaneous category. The larcenies were at 32. The number that really stands out is the assault. Those can be aggravated, simple assaults. Most of those assaults are going to be parties that know each other. So going back to that whole crime triangle that I talked to you about, that's something that I really want you all to kind of focus on, especially in late April, May, and June. The City of Raleigh and North Carolina has wonderful weather during those months. And there's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of festivals, a lot of things. And a lot of times adult beverages are served in there. And enjoy yourselves, but I'm just kind of amazed that there's a lot of solo persons at these festivals that are consuming these alcoholic beverages. And that really puts them in a bad spot. Because at some point or another, they need to have a plan to get home. And when you're under an impairing substance, getting that plan, to get home is challenging. So if you go out, have a buddy to these festivals, both of you have a plan. And on top of that, check your phones. If your phone is not holding a charge for 8 hours, then, it's easy for me to say, go out and get a new one, but they are a lifeline it is almost an essential everyday carry. I went to in-service training today, and the cell phone ranked right up with our firearm as one of our most important tools that we carry on our belts. So please, maintain your cell phones, and then just be safe when you're going out to these festivals. Not sure if Captain Tomczak can go live. I know he had a few questions and responses to what's going on with the traffic circle down there.
I think you can just speak.
Okay.
If I unmute him, maybe.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Just,
I'll let you.
no, he apparently is unmuted.
Put to the chat message.
Can you hear me okay in the room?
I can hear you outside.
Oh, is he speaking? You think?
Can those of
I'm really
you
sure.
live hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. So I apologize for not being at the meeting. I went home sick for the first time in many, many years today. So hopefully just whatever crud's going around, but I'm not going to torture you by putting on my video camera either. So the only thing I do want to address is we did get a email complaint from Larry that had been sent in to him from the neighborhood about the roundabout on Hardmont Drive, I believe it was. There were some pictures of it and a complaint that people were not obeying the traffic laws about the roundabout. I was called this morning by City of Raleigh Transportation Services. They said that they would be installing some signs at that location to direct people on how to properly navigate that roundabout. So, excuse me. That's we're happy to get you in touch with traffic engineering or whatever other city department may be in charge of your concerns. There's not a lot we can do at this point. The signage probably should have been up a little bit earlier, and I hope it will be up this week. So if there are any other questions, I'm happy to stay online and answer, or Matt probably can answer them with less of a scratch in his voice, very frankly.
Do you have any information about current trends in computer frauds? I think in WRL they're talking about Facebook ads. I think in my home I've been getting probably every day 1 or 2 fraudulent messages that my internet security has expired, and to redo that. And if you want to identify those because they have crazy email addresses that they're sending from, but they come from McAfee and Norton and Panda and just about everybody. It's the hot thing right now. So
Computer fraud is just it's an easy target, and just if you don't recognize it, don't click on it. I got to my work email today, I got somebody saying that my Zelly account was having some difficulties and there was some questionable transactions on it. Well, my work email ain't attached to that account. That's attached to my wife's email and all that type of stuff. So that's a red flag for me. But it sounded legit enough that, if somebody wasn't quite paying attention and taking kind of a rush and just, freaked out about seeing that, clicking that link would open themselves up. So when you get emails like that, or you get any type of ads or what's up, I would just say, you know what, you can slow it down. I mean, you're at your house, you're at your office, you're not at a traffic light that just turned green where you have to go. You can take your time and just kind of just think about it before you click.
Oh, Mr. Winkle, can you see if there's anything in the chat?
I do not see anything.
Anything relevant?
No.
Other than people complaining.
One message says I can't hear online.
Yeah, I think that's because I didn't have the volume up. They probably missed the early part of the police report.
Did you turn the volume up?
I did now.
All right. Any other questions, concerns? All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you next month.
All right, let's do a little checking here. I don't see anything on the chat. Okay. Did you take yourself out of the system?
No, this is the.
I see everybody but you.
The camera here takes me off of it, so helps.
Okay, I hope you're unmuted. A couple of things missing here that should be here.
There's more that goes down here.
I'm not sure what's going on here. Momentary problem here, but. Yeah, I can't see I don't know why the chat's not moving. Maybe there's nothing there. Okay. All right. Let's get moving on with our program. We did not do a roll call tonight. I guess you've all noticed that. And we did not have any minutes to approve. So hopefully we're going to get that rectified pretty soon, in case you're wondering. In terms of number of people in attendance, which you probably cannot see, looks like we have, how many?
18.
Okay. How many?
18.
18. Okay. So we're doing pretty good. And we have 1, 2, 5, and we have 11 online. So we're doing pretty good. We're going to hit our 20, 30 people like normal. And with all the trial and error we're doing tonight, it's probably just as well. So our next guest should be Dale Neal. Is Dale here? Dale Neal?
I'm a different Dale.
TraShanna, are you here? Oh, you want to go first? You want- Oh, I'm sorry, I left out Linda. This happens every time I do a meeting. It's all good. Let's do Linda Stafford from the Parks Department next, our special guest. And volume is up and everybody should be able to hear you. Yes.
Great. Something there. All right. Well, welcome to Eastgate. I'm actually really excited. I'm the community center director over at Millbrook Exchange Park, but we also manage Eastgate and Honeycutt. And I'm excited because this is actually the first CAC meeting back since this building's been renovated. So we were renovated back in 2019 and just finished right as COVID was starting. So some of our final walkthroughs were with masks and everybody was scared to touch each other. It was a whole thing. So we're really excited to have you guys back in here. Please do take a minute and look around before you leave. We're pretty excited about the space. As far as the Parks and Rec world going on right now, we are in full hiring mode for summer camp. So if you know of anybody that's looking for summer jobs, we're hiring for summer camp, we're hiring for lifeguards. We will do all of their training, pay for all of that. We will teach them all the things that they need to know. If you just know somebody who's willing to work hard and have fun, those are the folks that we want working in our department. So please send them my way, or you can just send them to the city website. It's raleighnc.gov. And you just search for jobs or employment, either word, we'll pull it right up for you. So look forward to having you back here. We're excited to have the CACs back in our spaces. So hopefully it looks like we've got you here for the next 2 months at least. So
Might get it right by then.
all right, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Alrighty. camps planned in the parks in your bailiwick that are in the Midtown area?
So this location is not actually hosting any camps. The Teen Extreme Camp used to be based out of Eastgate, and Millbrook hosted the Summer Express Camp, which was ages 6 to 11, Teen Extremes 12 to 14. But in order to enable one of our year-round programs for adults with special needs, in order to allow them to go all year and not have to break for the summer, we actually moved them here to Eastgate. And so we're actually taking on the Teen Extreme program at Millbrook. So we'll have both age groups there. There is quite a few programs within y'all's CAC still over at Optimist. They run a lot of different specialty camps as well as a regular Summer Express camp. Sertoma's got some specialty stuff going on. I don't know, Greystone might be out of y'all's district. I don't know exactly how far the boundaries go for y'all.
Parts of North Hills and
Yeah.
Millbrook, basically.
But yeah, Millbrook's got probably the biggest camp location, and most of our camps at this point are full. It's just the staffing we're trying to fill. So all of our camps tend to fill up the day registration opens, but our staffing is where we're trying to get caught up. So if you know anybody, please send them our way.
Are you
Linda?
looking for anyone that interview
Larry, can you hear me?
prospective employees?
Most of that
Yes.
we just handle in-house. So like I'm interviewing all the staff that are gonna be working at Millbrook. We've got other folks that'll interview at other locations. Did we have a question online?
Yes, yes. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Betsy Allen. When I was at the children's park the other day at Eastgate, the gate closure is frozen in the up position. And for parents that have little rascally kids that want to run outside the gate ahead of the parents, that could present a problem. I just wanted you to know about it, okay?
Tell you what, I will take a picture of that before I leave tonight and make sure it gets to our maintenance guys.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. And if y'all ever see stuff like that, either at Eastgate or any of our other parks, y'all are more than welcome to just shoot me an email with stuff. If it's not within my realm, I know who to forward it to. So.
C-click fix, I tried that for the first time the other day.
Yeah.
And I got
C-click fix works for a lot of stuff too. If it's not specific to a certain part, it really just depends on what it is. But yeah, C-click fix works for a lot of stuff. If you don't know who to send it to, that's a good place to start. But if you know specifically what park it is, sometimes we can get to it a little bit faster through work order. So, but yeah. Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
any update on the security and gate project that you heard was getting into the planning stage?
So the gate, we have found funding. It's just a matter of when they're gonna be able to figure out install and when that money will actually hit our account to be spendable. There is still some logistics that we have to work out in terms of how that's actually gonna function, because the tennis courts are open until 10 p.m. So because we allow tenants to cut on lights and they can go as late as 10 p.m., we have to make sure that there's access to the park up until that point. So I don't know that we would have it dawn to dusk like we were originally thinking. That's how it used to be when there was a gate back in the 70s and 80s here. And so we'll have to work through some of those logistics of what that looks like. It would be an automatic gate, so it would not be something that staff would have to go and lock and unlock. It would just have set hours where it's up and set hours where it's down. And I don't know yet whether or not it's something where if you're in the park, you can still exit, or if it just stays down once you're in. Which some gates, that's how they function. So it is what it is. So we're still working through the logistics of that. We still have some time because again, we're still waiting on the money to actually hit our account. They found the money, they just haven't put it there yet. As far as the security upgrades, we got bumped up on the list to be with the next batch of security cameras across all the parks and recreation facilities. So Millbrook was just done. That was about I would say about a 2-year process of identifying where the cameras needed to go, having them installed, having all the IT upgrades done in order for them to actually be put online and all of that stuff. So we've come through and done a preliminary where we would like to have all the cameras, if we could have every single camera we could possibly want. I anticipate probably in the next 6 months, they'll come back with, okay, here's what you can actually afford. Which ones do you want to cut? And we'll cut it down to about half that list and pick out the cameras that are, most important. At this location, my focus is exterior, because as long as I have one on that main entrance door, which I do already have, we have one interior camera. Then I see everybody that comes in and out of the building at that point, as long as I kind of want to focus on the outside. More so than the inside, whereas some of our other locations where we have our staffed locations, I want to focus on the inside because I want to see what's going on with my staff. I want to make sure my staff are safe and protected. But here, because we're not staffed, a lot of the behaviors that we're trying to catch are going on outside. Thus the little bit of spray paint that's still on the outside of the window over there, but yeah, so we've identified it. I don't know for sure timeline. At Millbrook, it took about 2 to 3 years from the time that they identified where we initially wanted them to when they actually got installed and working. We also at Millbrook, we ran into some issues with some of the equipment that they originally planned for was no longer available because of some of the backlog with COVID. So I don't know if that's something that we'll face with Eastgate. If it is, that might delay things and keep it at that 2 to 3 year mark. If not, it may be, a year from now, 2 years from now. But it is in the works. We moved up on the list. We were like 3rd or 4th tier, and we're now in the very next tier. So, any other part questions?
Good, well, thank you, Jack.
Oh, you're welcome. We really love and rely on Parks and Rec camps. Thank you. Awesome.
I want y'all to know too, that Linda's been, my contact for years. And she's the one, and I want to know something, she's the one I go to. She's been great at responding quickly and very informative. A lot of times.
I don't always know the answer, but I'll tell
Well,
you.
I try to get her the answer so she can fill me in later when she gets answers. So it works out pretty well. But in terms of the park itself and the renovations that we went through a couple of years ago, Linda was the key person to set everything up for us. So she's great.
And like I said, I don't know everything about every park, but I can typically put you in contact with the right people. So if you have an issue that's not at Eastgate, if you have an issue at Eastgate, by all means, come to me. Some of them will fall under my realm. Some of them will be under maintenance. Some of them will be stormwater. It could be anywhere. But I will always put you in contact with the right people whenever I can. So we do our best.
Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
I don't think we have to do that. Based on what I see, I don't think we have to do that. Okay, for the audience out there, the remote audience, I hope that you all have the ability to unmute. So if you want to speak, you can do that. Betsy just did it, right, Betsy?
Yes, I did. And then I muted again, so I'd be able to hear everybody else.
Okay, just making sure that everybody's on here, that as we roll along. In the beginning, that was my fault. I turned down the volume. So those of you that were sitting at home were probably wondering what was going on, but I apologize for that. All right, next part of our program, if I would ever pull up an agenda here and try to stay to it. Yes, community engagement, and we have Dale. Nice to meet you, Dale. And what
Tyson is here as well. She did have an engagement, but she was able to get free from that. So.
Oh, okay. Let me set you up here.
Good, how are you? Good, I'm Taisha Hinton with the Office of Community Engagement. Sorry that I'm late, my son had a quick practice.
Right.
There you go, sit there. So she goes.
Whoever wants to do the presentation, doesn't matter.
We're gonna both do it.
Okay. You're welcome to use the computer.
Oh, there are people on the screen.
We have a combination, yeah. So best you can just page down and that'll get you going. It'll get you another.
Just page down.
Okay, just arrow down. Okay, that should change the thing. Okay, let's.
Yeah, right. It's blurred, so it only. Are we good to go?
Are we good?
You are good.
Okay, again, good evening. Did you introduce yourself? Go
I
ahead.
did not. My name is Dale. I'm with the Office of Community Engagement, the City of Raleigh.
And we're gonna co-present today. So he's gonna start us off. I'll come in at some point and then we'll give y'all the opportunity and you you all on the screen to
Yeah.
give you the chance to ask us any questions, okay? Hey, Sheree. We have a community engagement board member here this evening. All right.
All right, so I'll just go over our office structure. We have our community engagement manager, Taisha. And then we have 3 senior community relations analysts, myself, Ellen Colon, and Deborah Kuffner. We, like I said, we are the Office of Community Engagement. The little diagram you see kind of encompasses what we do in our office, strategic planning, working with other city departments, outreach and education, and we also manage the community engagement board. A little bit of background on how our office was formed. Mickey Fern presented to the city council back in May of 2021. In June, Housing and Neighborhoods presented a community engagement framework to city council. And then
Is that a little better? Go ahead.
okay, yeah. Then in July 2021, there was the establishment of our office. September, Taisha was hired, and then February of 2022, proposed structure for the creation of the community engagement board. Now, the purpose of our office, we lead people focused processes that increase the collective capacity of the community to improve the quality of life for individuals who live, work, and play here in the city of Raleigh. One of our purposes also is to advance the city's goal of improving and reimagining community engagement efforts. And another purpose is to encourage active participation in decision-making dialogue and public policy.
So this slide had words on it on Microsoft,
Yeah.
but in Macs that they don't always transition. So I think the important piece here is that long rectangle on the bottom, it says relationship building. And that is the foundation of the work that we do. And that's the most critical part of our work. It's there in white letters. Can't you all see those words? All right.
And don't use blueprint like that.
Well, I think it was white.
What's it?
Well, you can't see that, but those are some of our documents that guide our work as an office. So the first one says public participation playbook. So that's like the golden egg of public participation, the city's strategic plan, and the spectrum that it's called the IAP2 spectrum of public participation.
Training that I am taking right now.
Yes. So Dell will talk a little bit about some of what we've done so far, and then I'll hop back in.
Yes, so a few of our accomplishments, some of the things we've done, we've worked with planning and development, the Raleigh Planning Academy, Raleigh's Black Heritage and Historic Places, Tarboro Road Community Outreach. And these are a couple of the strategic planning groups that we are involved in.
Yeah, the items with a check, we've already done, and the items with a squirrely white symbol are those that we're still involved in. So earlier he talked about us supporting city departments. So here's some of our departmental stuff.
And this just kind of continues to show you some of the work that we've done, some of the consultations and partnerships, working with the U visa policy and 5 Points corridor, capital facility fee engagement. And on the right-hand side, you see some of the programs that we're still involved in and helping other city offices out with.
Yeah, and I'll just say, he talked earlier about how the office started in July of 21. I came in September of 22. And when we first started working with departments, we got put into some weird stuff. For example, like Raleigh Warner contacted me and said, we want to make the public aware of our capital facility fee. And I was like, well, what's that? And then he started to explain it to me and the importance of it. And the question that we often ask departments is, what message are you trying to convey? Why should people care? Why should they take their time to pay attention to what it is you want them to listen to? And so if a department can answer those questions, we got to take like 10 steps back. Once we get the answer to the questions, then we ask them, well, who are you trying to reach? Where are they located? And what can you do differently than the last time you put the specific project out? So that's kind of the consultation. That's just an example of different consultations we have with departments.
These are, oh,
So you're kind of like the public relations for different departments.
In a sense, yeah. Mhm. Except like if they have a crisis, don't call us. Like they should call communications, you know, like a water main break. We can't help you.
right.
You know what I mean? So yes, with an asterisk, as long as it's not an emergency.
Aisha, I think you touched on the biggest problem we have is that a lot of times when you make a presentation, it's to council or to the mayor.
Mhm.
The question really becomes, what is community engagement going to do for us, particularly at the CNC level?
I'm getting there.
Oh.
These are a few of our office initiatives, new board member handbook, PowerPoint. You see some of the checks are the things that we've accomplished. The trainer, all the way over to local voter groups and helping out with that as well. This is some of the outreach that we've done at some of the events that have happened across the city. At Juneteenth, 5 Points community engagement discussion, Rise Southeast Schools Community Day event.
And this slide had words too in Microsoft, I promise.
Yeah.
But they're not showing here.
Yes.
So we'll keep going. Earlier, Dale talked about another portfolio or another toolkit in our toolbox is our community engagement board. Trey is with us today. She serves on the executive board. It's made up of these beautiful folks on the screen. 8 individuals from that board are selected from folks that our office recommends to council, and the other 8 are specifically selected by members of council. So you have a person from each district, someone from the mayor and at large, and then the 8 seats that we recommend to council cover specific areas. So we're looking for someone who is a longtime resident of Raleigh or someone who is new to Raleigh, a minority business owner, a community advocate. So different types of positions are what 8 of the folks on this board feel. I mean, they all have different lived experiences and there's a lot of overlap, but there are specific seats for which they were selected. These are our community connectors. So the folks here on the screen support the city's public project community support fund, very long name for the New Bern BRT Tarboro Road area. They're currently canvassing and doing outreach to share information about grants that are available to small businesses and residents who live in the New Bern BRT Tarboro Road area. All right. Getting to your question. Back in January of this year, our office presented at the council retreat an idea in which we're calling right now the engagement network. So something that we were tasked, some feedback that we received is, we understand that you're doing a lot of work internally, you have this board and you have these connectors, but the new council wanted us to have an external reach as well. So when I came on board, there was a different council than there is now. Y'all know that. And as council changes, priorities change. And so the new council wanted to see some external outreach from our office. And so they said, go and figure out what that looks like and then come back and tell us. So this is a part of that proposal. Where we create a network for organizations like yourself that extend beyond place-based interaction. So it's not just about like where you live, but it's also about what similar interests, values, or social ties you may have, with the purpose of trying to foster participation and engagement in the greater Raleigh community. What we told the council was that in our proposal, that our office could assist organizations with coordinating meetings, with getting information from city staff, giving access to community centers, some capacity building. We could also assist with partnership and collaboration and help with some mailings for organizations that are part of this network. Some of you, most of you may be familiar with the Raleigh Neighborhood Registry. So if you look on the right side, in order to be a part of the registry, you have to be a neighborhood association, a block club, a community watch group, a garden club. So it's all, most of those are based off like a geographical area. And what we're proposing to the council is that they look at it beyond where you live, right? Like that's important. That is a sense of community, but you could also be a part of a social group for women who like nice scarves, right? And y'all get together and that's what y'all do. And you make scarves and you sell, whatever you do, we want to create a space to support that type of engagement as well. So on the other side of the screen is what you see that we propose to the council. And this is just kind of like that same information that I just shared. So it's very similar to the registry, but it expands beyond neighborhoods. So access to city equipment. There's a lighter blue, you guys can't see. Is there a way to, so they can see the other side? To expand it out a little bit. Okay, so again, this is just a side-by-side comparison of those benefits. What I was about to say is that ability to apply for funding on the engagement on the Raleigh Neighborhood Registry, that's already something that exists. And we're hoping that with this upcoming budget that we get the approval of staff and resources to also have funding available for the types of organizations we're talking about. But all of that is contingent upon if we get staff and resources in this upcoming budget. Again, it's only a proposal at this time. Pending the budget is when it would be approved. It does require additional staff to get that up and running. We will have to have some type of mechanism to vet groups and figure out what that looks like. And then we'll do this in partnership with IT and Raleigh Parks. So obviously we work with Raleigh Parks for the centers that are available now, but IT will have to help us with like setting up registration and things like that. So we are having, the budget office is having several budget workshops with council. I believe the next one is the proposed budget. So we should have an idea as to what direction that's going to go here soon. This is just how you can find us online. This is what our website looks like. And that's one of our team members, Deborah. And we'll take any questions.
I like you touched on the funding side of it because, yeah, we used to get $1,000 a year.
Yep.
And in the CAC, now we get 0.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly with the way we're doing Zoom meetings and virtual meetings.
Yeah.
And trying to combine it with physical meetings, as you can tell tonight, we're struggling with it, but
Yeah.
we're getting through it. And I'll find out later the pluses and the minuses of what we did tonight, but some level of funding, even if it's at a lower level than we got before, would definitely be a nice thing to do. It's kind of a shame that the neighborhood registry groups get certain benefits, but the KFUs don't.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like it's just an injustice there. So I encourage you to go ahead and try to get us some.
Doing my best. And not just for you all, right? But for other organizations out there. I just learned about a group called the Empowering Network, and they work to like empower women in the workforce, right? And that's just a small nonprofit doing really cool stuff. And we also want to give resources and connections to those types of groups as well.
Anisha, is there anything that we can do on our end to facilitate maybe being better recognized to make it more eligible for things?
Petition your council members. They're the ones who make those decisions. I know so I was born, Dale and I were born and raised in Raleigh, so we're very familiar with CACs and their history and their legacy in the city. But what we try to do is find ways to create opportunities for all. And if it's something explicitly that we haven't been given the direction to say, like, here's funding available only for this specific group of organizations, that's the type of stuff that you got to talk to your council member about. Yeah, question.
So one of the things that CACs have traditionally done is to be in place if there's development going on within the CACs. And when city council decided to defund CACs, what ended up happening were that actually developers started doing those things. And in my experience, and probably the experience of a lot of folks in this room, those meetings end up being pretty unsatisfactory. Because
they're generally just people in a certain range.
Well, and yeah, that's a really good point. And the other point is that you need to have people at those meetings that are sophisticated enough that if they're not getting really great information. And in the CAC, because there were more broader, and because there were people that had more information, you know, a lot of issues would come up and there would be a much better discussion. So I've been told by the planning director, by Mr. Young, that they were actually in the process of developing a new template for doing those that would put those meetings back. It sounded like it was another thing that was going to be into the RTU. So I'm just wondering where the progress is. You know, I did the planning academy. A little bit about this issue there, but I just haven't heard any follow-up on that.
I definitely can't speak for Pat. I'm curious, around what time did you have that conversation with him? Like a month ago, 2 months ago, yesterday?
Well, I actually spoke with him about it again. Just had a one-on-one conversation with him. And what he said to me was that staff were working on that and he'd send it to me, and I'll email him a couple of times.
Again, not speaking for Pat, and no way am I a planner and I'm not 100% sure what he was referring to, but here's my guess. One, I talked earlier about these folks supporting a specific area for another project. Planning also has 10 community connectors who are folks from neighborhoods who attend the first public meeting. Someone that's not staff, someone that's not the developer, and they were trained to answer and filter through a certain level of questions. They're not planners, so they don't, know everything. So that could be one thing he was referring to. Another item that we have with planning is kind of having some tough conversations, I would say, about ways to enhance their rezoning process, and they're super open to that. And it's things from I've received a lot of feedback that depending on which side of town you're on, the information that the developer provides or the way in which they provide it are different, right? So my response was, well, why can't we give them, if that's who's doing the meetings right now, why can't we give them, the 7 things that every meeting must cover? Or, I think a question was having like standard terms or just a baseline of information. So like if Jill Scott walked into a neighborhood meeting, she could at least capture the words that are being thrown around. So we're having conversations about what that looks like. As far as who's running the meeting, that has not been something that I'm familiar with.
So Larry, have you participated in any, or has anybody in the room participated in a neighborhood meeting where there was one of those folks?
Hi. I'm actually, my name is Steve Raphael. I'm actually another community.
Yeah.
So, you know, we got off to a bit of a slow start and everything like that, but the fact of the matter is there actually hasn't been.
I'm sharing.
There's only been two since I've
all right.
meetings, first time meetings. In fact, I showed up at the second time meeting because I didn't know we weren't supposed to go to that. But, you know, basically, we're able to ask questions, and the other thing we do is, like, I talk to the people that attend about, you know, the process. Again, they do go over the process, but, you know, for example, people don't understand it, and go to the planning commission also, and they can speak up there as well. As, you know, first reach out to various people on the planning commission directly or the council, and then obviously, you know, people at the council. But, you know, the thing is, it's sort of, it's an interesting process. The city did a good job. The training is really helpful.
Okay.
I think some of us were a little surprised by the narrowness of the role statute, because we just focused on the first meetings. that occurred. So one selection, you were talking about needing, you know, more staff and certain things. One thing they not even think about is some of the community connectors have some talent in certain areas.
Yeah.
Maybe it will tap them. They know the program's experimentally only funded for this year.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is there, and the role of the connector is to sort of be somebody that's not working in the city, although we are compensated for our time, but we're there to advocate to make sure the information is coming out. And we ask, you know, I've asked the developers questions and things like that, but so that is there. You know, there's been there are 3 meetings I went to, and one was actually outside A. We're assigned by district. But since it was close to A, I went to it. And, you know, the other fact of the matter is that the attendance issue of people getting engaged is Richford Road, they upwards of 200 notices went out. There were 14 people getting, and not being made. So, you know, that's sort of part of it, is that the engagement part. But the other thing we do as connectors is sort of summarize what went on and then shoot it out where we have, whether it's, you know, next door or you know, even Facebook, or, you know, I circulate to the CAC. So that's sort of, but it's started.
Yeah. So we kicked this off as a pilot program, and thank you, Steve. The only reason that Steve was not on that slide is because he's a connector for the planning department, and our connectors work on something else. So it's not that I didn't want a picture of you. Okay. But it's a pilot. This is our first time doing this. And so it does have potential to grow based on the feedback that the planning department gets from y'all. I don't know who went first.
Asking to follow, you mentioned the bridge of some sort.
I mentioned a bridge.
In your talking points about what different areas you had a check mark about, there was something about a multimodal bridge in that long list that you started with. Like it had Dix Park, it had the Chavis Pool, it had several different things.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking about.
Go ahead.
I can answer. So we work with transportation on some of the outreach as far as the multimodal bridge survey that went out.
Okay.
Well, I-440.
Yes.
So again, process,
Yeah.
transportation says, hey, I didn't work on this project, so
Yeah,
I don't know much. We have this bridge project,
Right.
and here's the message we're trying to convey, and that's how we get involved. David, I think you were next up here.
Yeah, a quick question. I mean, so much of this is self-selecting, right? I mean, that's the big challenge with engagement, because the people who choose to engage feel heavily or terribly invested in particular things. It's actually, personally, I found with emails, with the planning agendas, council agendas, and Twitter and a few other things, you can really stay on top of what you want to stay on top of. But I've always felt pressure to show up to a lot of these things, because the people showing up are the people that are not happy. And the people who are happy stay at home. So it's very self-selective. If you were happy with what was happening over the last 3 years, then there was no reason for you to show up, other than the fact that the only people who were showing up were the people who weren't happy. And so I'm really concerned about the self-selecting nature of any kind of most of the engagement that's been done so far and seems to be ramping back up.
Thank you for your comment. I don't know who was next in the room.
Community connectors.
Yep.
The big, I would call it elephant in the room
Mhm.
is the North Hills Tower. So the North Hills, the multiple towers that have been for North Hills.
Mhm.
Which are kind of unpacked.
Yep.
But as a CAC, well, it's a non-existent CAC, but the members tried to reach out to develop. The men developed once. But there was no interaction, so everything that happened with that project was kind of behind the wall.
Mhm.
You couldn't see, you couldn't
Yeah.
hear, and then council shifted.
Yep.
Changed over. And I would be interested to see how the engagement board, the engagement group,
Mhm.
council, really connect community members
Mhm.
with developers, so we can have those conversations.
Mhm.
And try to listen to each
Yeah.
other. They want to make money, we want to have a nice place to live.
Mhm. Yeah, so outside of, explicitly, that's not in my purview. Right? Explicitly, I don't have a way to find all the developers and make sure they do what I tell them to do. So, go ahead.
Of course.
Right, so the incremental steps are starting with, well, what is the process? What are developers required to do now, and is that enough? No, here's what our office suggests to the planning department, because they're our client, if you will, to modify, enhance, keep, shift their processes to create additional opportunities for engagement. So our work is specifically with the departments who are responsible for the process. So there's not an explicit way to get any developer to do something that we wish they would from our office's scope.
Let me say this, the building that's going in behind me on St. Albans, we've had some noise issues and stuff coming from this. We had someone in our neighborhood actually get with that developer. They started a conversation, included us as a group. Because sometimes you gotta do it that way.
Well, yeah, I'm walking there, however.
Well,
I didn't know if this.
Unfortunately, it's not. I hear you and I understand. It's just not something that we have the authority to do.
I'll just make an observation. I think that the CAC now is more active than before the COVID, but I think we have a small number of people out of the 90,000 people who live in our area. But there is continuity.
Mhm.
I think I was served on the Midtown St. Albans confirmation group. I think Larry would do with that. That was 10 people, but they held a number of public hearings and really had a much larger number of people come and react to the
Mhm.
plan,
Mhm.
but there was no continuity or follow-up. And so and I think a lot of these projects that have gone by, there's never really any after action report.
Mhm.
One of the things I recall is when we put the Wegmans in, and they were discussing that, and there's all these doomsday scenarios about the traffic. And that actually turned out pretty well. I think it handled the traffic there great, and a lot of these doomsday scenarios, if you go to the meeting, didn't turn out. I think those are, and there's other things, like traffic calming, which is going on, which at least my own opinion is a disaster, and they really need to reevaluate the whole thing we're doing, but that's something else. The other thing I learned was St. Albans confirmation group is that instead of all of our meetings and the time we sat around, the people who own some of the commercial real estate there went directly to the city council. And they just bypassed the whole thing, so it's not, we're not the only people there, and the city council are the people who have been elected by the citizens to make all those decisions. not us, and I think we ought to keep that in mind, that we do want to be informed and we have ways, but I think going directly to developers, looks like you've done. You gotta do that if you want to make a difference. It takes time and effort to do your job. Go to your city council and it's important. The way the process works.
Get everybody's questions answered and taking care of the chat. I can't see.
There's nothing else in the chat. What
Okay.
else? No, that's it.
Thank you guys all.
Sorry. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, internet people. So my name is TraShanna, but everyone calls me Trey. I am a part of the Community Engagement Board for the City of Raleigh. I am also the secretary on the board for the Community Engagement Board. And so, because I'm a millennial, I have it nice and neatly in my phone, what I'm supposed to say. So we just wanted to point out that we do have a mission statement, which is to nurture a citywide approach to community engagement that promotes radical inclusion through trust, transparency, and mutual respect. So our aim is to do this the best we can and be as transparent as possible. We do things, we work with city council, hopefully on behalf of the responses we get from you guys. And a perfect example of that is council asked us about some opinions and our job was to tell them what we heard. So one of our ideas was to put out a poll and it was super successful and we got feedback. And then from that feedback, we gave our responses to council. And what came out of that is we will hopefully, make sure that I don't get any trouble if I say this, we will be having hopefully separate meetings just for the community to be able to speak and with a guaranteed 3 minutes for speakers so that people don't feel rushed and it doesn't go from 3 minutes and then because we have 30, people speaking, now it's cut down to a minute for people to speak. So that is one of the positive things that we do and hope to continue to do. Now, a part of our transparency is we want to be able to go into the communities and be able to have our meetings where people can come so they don't have to be downtown because it's a challenge for parking and people to get downtown. So we want to try to come to different community centers to have our meetings. All of our meetings are open to the public, so feel free to come anytime. They are the second Wednesday of each month. Yeah, so we hope to, come out here and you guys can join us. We don't have a set schedule yet on when we plan on doing those things, nor do we know an order in which we want to be at each community center. We are actively working on that and also trying to get the technology set up so that we can also have meetings like this as well, where you guys can join in via Zoom while we're having our live meetings. And some of you guys as community members have come to our meetings and we appreciate that. But yeah, are there any questions?
Have you started recording your meeting yet? I know the last time.
Come join me.
On my way out the door. Yeah.
Started.
Yeah, so I'm taking an item to city council on May 2nd. All are welcome. And that agenda item is presenting council with different formats for boards and commissions to meet. So not just their board, but something that we did not mention is that we support the boards and commissions as well. So they all have a staff liaison and we support the staff liaisons who work with the boards. And so during that presentation, or March 21st is when we first took the item and we asked council to authorize boards different, the flexibility to meet in different ways. Because prior to that, During COVID, they met virtually, and then when council came back to meeting in person, they said that all of the boards and commissions had to do so as well. So this is very recent that we're trying to give them the option to meet in person, add voicemail public comments for people who are still not comfortable coming in person, give them the ability to use some type of hardware like an owl or something, and some software to stream their meetings. So we're currently trying to figure out the cost for all of that. And so like if every board wants to meet virtually, so we have to figure out how much that's gonna cost, because we all pay for that. And then there was something else I was gonna say to that is, oh, all of the boards are currently having conversations amongst themselves to figure out which format they want to do. So May 2nd, we'll have an answer for you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
While both of you are here, come back to what I said before. We're trying to figure out what the big picture is. Taisha, I've worked with you enough to know what your goals are and how you want to be a little more inclusive with the CAC.
Yep.
TraShanna, I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
No, that's fine.
We're still trying to figure out what the community engagement board is doing. I know you guys undertake the task that council asks you to do, like the survey. I think we need more outreach from community engagement board, and we definitely would like to see some form of a hybrid meeting. If we can do it on a string and whatever, I think you guys can do it too. And I don't think cost is an issue. I think technical support should be there for you, and I don't see any barrier that should keep you guys from doing that. The point is to get yourselves out to the community. And we're very interested both in the interaction between the two of you and then your reactions and relationships with council. And so far, it's all been positive. You've got some good Raleigh CAC people on there. So we get a lot of reports back. But that's why I wanted you both here tonight to kind of put it all together.
They
You
are
can go
taking their work plan and their bylaws on June 20th, I think is the date, is that right? And so right, because they don't have, they have like their purpose and.
Yeah,
and
we
their
have our mission.
that they talked about. But every city board and commission has a work plan that has to be approved by the council. A part of their work plan is having community conversations, and it's about how do we respond rapidly to different things and what do we do with the feedback that we get. It's just they're not formally working on that because it hasn't gone to council yet. The June 20th is when we hope to get approval on their mission, work plan items.
Yep.
And their bylaws.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm biased, but they have really great bylaws. I'm very excited about them, but I think it's gonna it's different than a lot of other boards and commissions, so it'll be an interesting conversation. But we're hoping that they get that approval to do their work.
So to be fair, that is a 100% valid opinion. Like, and I also want you to know, you've also been there. That's our biggest thing, like, because no one on the board wants to be seen as not being transparent. So being able to go out in the community and also do virtual, I think is on everybody's, like, that's what we want to focus on as soon as we're able to get, logistics and things done. But we kind of have to, because we are new, less than a year old. So we do have to do the background work first before we can do the fun things that we want to do.
And I'll just say from a staff perspective, we want to make sure that all boards and commissions are getting that same thing. So we want to make sure that the Mayor's Persons with Disabilities Board or the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, that everyone's getting the ability to meet virtually and all that stuff. So it's happening slower than I would like for it to be, but it is happening.
Someone said they have enjoyed watching the meetings of the Historic Planning Commission and City Council meetings on Spectrum Community Channel 11. Are we on that platform? I mean, I can answer that no, but
Yes, the short answer is no. There are some boards and commissions that are, what's the word? Not advisory. Thank you. Quasi judicial boards typically have preference over like the planning commission, although they're advisory, believe it or not. They get some of that stuff. I can't think of all the boards right now, but no, we don't. But we did have and we had a council member ask us how much it would cost the city to stream all of the board and commission meetings. And it's just gonna be expensive. So May 2nd, we'll present those numbers, and if they say that dollar amount can be footed, then we will. But if not, then the backup plan is to use webcams and WebEx and all that stuff to make it happen.
Any other questions? Okay, so before I go, I just want to say that the Community Engagement Board is on the City of Raleigh website with all of our group pictures and our names and stuff. And if you guys have any comments, feel free. We have an email up there. We're fancy. Feel free to email us, and it will definitely be talked about at the next meeting. And we hope to see some of you guys there. We welcome you all to come.
Where and when is your next?
So right now we're having them on the second Wednesday of each month, and we have them in what's the name of the building?
One Exchange.
One Exchange Plaza on the 8th floor.
And if you do come to the meeting, we'll validate your parking ticket. If you park in the more square parking deck, we'll validate parking.
May 10th, next week.
It's from 4:30 to 6:30. Sorry, I
Usually
did not
goes
include
past
that.
6:30.
Yes. Yeah, that is, yep. Something we're talking about when we go to the community.
It's hard to see. I mean, it's hard to see what.
It's hard to know the job.
Mhm.
And, actually, I understand. We appreciate the streaming. We appreciate the.
Glad
No
you're
problem.
both here tonight. Great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good one.
All right. Hope this is all working out for those of you that are remote. We're having a ball here in person, and maybe in the future we'll have some drinks, food, who knows? Encourage you all to get here. Yeah, non-alcoholic that we know of, right? All right, I think we've reached the point where, and I know you all have the ability to unmute, and if you're tired of trying to tap things into chat, I think you can pretty much unmute yourselves if there's something you want to say. And I'm just going to open up for discussion at this point. We did have one more agenda item that came in late. And Dale, you want to come in here and just bring your position up? Yeah, now it's good. Yeah, that way everybody can see it. Whether you want to be seen or not.
Sure, no problem. Well, what I have to share with you all is either on the lighter side or the far side, depending on your perspective, perhaps. But anyway, it was just, I've been kind of involved with CACs and our neighborhood sort of on the fringe of things for 25 years or however long. We've lived in the Northcliffe neighborhood for almost 34 years now in the same house. So it's a bit unusual for most people to stay in one spot for so long. Anyway, having the in-person meeting just prompted me to have something I wanted to share with you. It really relates to my wife and some of the people in the neighborhood, but she wasn't able to come tonight. So I told her I would do it. But my name is Dale, and I have this because I tend to, talk too much. So if I follow this, it'll be succinct and to the point. My name is Dale Johnson, and my wife and I have lived in the Northcliffe neighborhood for 34 years, as I said. Our neighborhood is located off the intersection of Sandy Forks, Six Forks, and Northcliffe Drive. Hopefully you all know where that is. We also have a section along North Hills Drive and along Dixon, almost up to Sanderson High School. A lot of people don't realize that our neighborhood actually has over 500 homes in it. As some of you may have noticed, perhaps you have or not, in driving by, the wall on one side of our front entrance was knocked down by a drunk or incoherent driver almost a year ago. We don't have a homeowners association, and the corners of our entrance actually belong to the homeowners on each corner, except for the utility easement. Well, one of our neighbors looked up the police report and got the insurance information of the responsible driver who crashed into the wall. And the Northcliff Home and Garden Club members worked with the driver's insurance company to file a claim. Finally, after almost a year of red tape, the club has received payment, which is almost $24,000, to have the wall repaired, and that work should begin in the next few weeks. Anyway, walls on both sides have been at our entrance since 1969, and one side actually has a plaque that was stolen and somehow found and returned a number of years ago. When the Raleigh Bicentennial occurred and they placed that on the wall in 1992, most likely these walls will have to come down based on the proposed plans for the Six Forks widening project and what they're doing with that intersection. They're too close, I think, to the road. I'm not sure if the city will be interested in helping us create a new entrance to our neighborhood or not. Several of the members of our club attended some of the earlier community input sessions when the project was being developed, but the city representatives didn't seem too concerned about incorporating anything into the plans at the time. And with actual construction at least a year or two away, I'm doubtful that anything will materialize. So perhaps a bit of history will just kind of be lost. But anyway, a little historical information that might be of interest. The Northcliff Home and Garden Club was founded in 1970. And as I mentioned before, Northcliff doesn't have a homeowners association. So the Garden Club was formed to promote beautification throughout the neighborhood, provide a means for the women in the neighborhood to socialize, support one another, especially new families moving in and new mothers, and to promote kids' play and recreation at the Optimus Park, which was actually created in 1973, once the completion of building of the homes in the neighborhood were done. Over the course of 50 plus years, the Garden Club participated in the Home and Garden Show that used to be held at the Downtown Civic Center. Each garden club throughout the city would be assigned a small plot. The city would have dirt trucked in, and the club would get donations from local garden centers to create a garden based on a given theme for that year. Winners would take home prize money to support the club. In addition, the Garden Club would have community yard sales and bake sales, the usual ways to raise a little money to maintain our front entrance, since there are no homeowners dues, and to award gift cards for a Christmas decorating contest and yard of the month. Each year, the club would see if they had any extra money, and they would contribute to the libraries of the local schools. In the past couple of years, the club has held a plant sale, which has been very successful and has raised more money than in past years. The club has donated money to the local pet shelters and adoption centers, women's shelters, and others similar type organizations. Over the past 20 years, based on the records that are still available, the club has donated over $5,000 to these local charities. And if I might put in a little plug in closing, the next plant sale is Saturday, May the 6th from 8 to noon at 325 Northcliff Drive. There'll be signs, and there will be several hundred plants for sale. If you might have any plants you'd like to donate, you can send an email to the northcliffhgc@gmail.com, or you can come by and donate or buy some plants. Thank you very much.
Totally unsolicited. All right, let's get back to that community conversation. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up besides me? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Matt? No. No, it's a real problem. Gonna try to say things without being too hard on them. Community engagement group for the city initially had 2 people. They now have a staff total of 4 people. If the proposal from their group goes through, they will multiply in an unknown entity because they do more than community engagement. As you saw, they're reaching out to all the departments within the city to try to help them do community engagement. Yeah, and that's, so their budget's going to go up incrementally, and they can't even do a hybrid meeting to facilitate it.
Now, wasn't it the case that they actually raised taxes on the
Yes. And like I said before, we were, let's see, there were 18 CACs, they were getting $1,000 a year, $18,000. First person that was hired was Taisha, and she got, I think, $90,000. It's not that anymore, I don't think, but it just give you an idea. And then there's 2 people, 3 people, right? 3 people, yeah, 3 people currently, and they're gonna add additional people. So while the city is complaining they don't have staff, the question really becomes, where is the staff and what is staff doing? When they talk about the cost of trying to do a hybrid meeting, I mean, hey, we're doing it. We're not doing it well, but we're doing it. Fortunately, Ted, had all the equipment that we needed, because I went out and I did an estimate of what it would take. For us, it would be $150 to rent what we need to do a one-time meeting. Now, I don't know what kind of cost the city is getting back to try to do the same thing, but I don't think we're in the same ballpark. Right.
So, and, I did what Taisha did as part of the city of Asheville for a bunch of years. And my major concern listening to her, and I've been listening to her, is that a lot of the outreach they're talking about doing has nothing to do with the city.
Right.
So their focus should be on city services and how to create opportunities for engagement with city services.
Yep.
And so when she comes and she starts talking about interacting with women's groups and offering them support and ways for them to get better, all of those groups have other resources in the community that that do that.
Right.
And my main concern is that they're just not focused on
Right.
on creating that connection between city services and all of us. And so when I look at that stuff,
Yeah, it's
expensive to do all of that, and it's not going to make any of our lives any better.
It was how long it's taken to get to this point.
Yeah.
3 years. They get back in this building.
Yeah, this engagement boards.
Yeah. Well, there is hope for them because,
But they're just in the student. They don't.
well, it's a matter of how independent they get. The board itself is made up of some of the people from different CACs. So they have the same voice that we have, and they're trying to mold from within the communications engagement board. The problem is they have the same barrier. We still have the same mayor, and we have a new council and an old council together. So you got to just start breaking down those barriers. Now, one of the nice things that we've got is Steve. I mean, one of the things that Steve does for us is he goes to the various rezoning meetings. I can't make them all. And I do go to more than just what's within our Midtown area, just because I'm curious what other parts of the city are going to be going through. And some of them, there's nobody. I mean, when they have a neighborhood meeting, nobody shows up. And then they can't understand why that is. Well, they're in areas that, like on the Trib Road, they're in areas north of 540 where people they didn't do a very good job of communication. It's mostly apartment houses. Those people, when I interviewed them, never got a notice. So it's the whole system just breaking down, and it's just got to be done better than what it is.
Well, the issue with these people that are concerned with the development in a certain area. It's a very limited area. And one thing I thought was nice about the CACs is we looked at it as a community.
Yes,
And a lot of times, there were projects that came, like the one up on Shelley.
yes,
You know, the CAC was basically trying to tell them, you know, these people appear to be going the right way. and
Right.
don't vote this way. You know,
right,
and that was the group as a whole, because we heard of them, this the presentation.
Right.
So I mean, one person goes to the first meeting, okay, but it does seem better to have it all consolidated for the community as a whole. I think the idea is that using the connectors to bring it back to the different groups. My career was actually in corporate communications for 35 years. I actually understand what they're trying to do. The problem is it takes time. The idea behind it is that you have existing groups, and the PhD is an existing group. I'm not disavowing that. What I'm saying, if you have the concept they're thinking of is you have, for example, you can say like a running club. Just sort of liaise to them a little bit, because that's another way of getting towards a community of a different type. So that's the concept of it. The idea of having to work within the city system and the city organization is not any different than when you have you can call it corporate communications, but you already call it marketing. When you have a marketing department within a company, they liaise to the different product groups or the different other groups to work with. So, you know, the liaise thing isn't crazy, but the thing they're up against is the time thing. And I think the good part is that they are saying that they will want to reach out with the CAC. So the CACs become another one of those groups that they liaise with. And so that's, you know, and that's what part of my suggestion was, hey, you can probably tap a few of these community connectors. And quite frankly, you know, like I said, District A has had two rezoning meetings since the beginning of the year. So, you know, it's not like I'm killing it here in my retirement. So, but you have the opportunity maybe to send them out. I'd gladly go, you know, wherever you send me, for things like that. So I think you may see that involved a little bit more, especially if they don't get the staffing they want. But even the concept of community connectors is two separate ones. There's one assigned to planning and development, and the other group is on the community engagement side. I don't think we got to pick which one we got assigned to, but you know, so that concept of outreach is not totally, it's not totally foreign. Is it happening as quick as anybody wants to? No, I mean, it took, you know, the community connectors took 3 months to go off the ground from the time we were notified to have 2 meetings of training. You know, so that's sort of the catch.
Well, the catch also is that it's a crappy process. I mean, the rezoning process at this point is horrible.
Well, it's been done to favor the developers. And I mean, the whole fuss over how large an area do they have to send notices out to. And that makes a big difference to them. And you watch it expand and go down.
Well, it's decreased.
There. So, I mean, this is kind of where I'm coming from. There was, with the CACs, a community board, and everybody thinks of the CAC as this little group. Boy, when Kane has development, this room is full. You can't find parking.
Yeah,
Because this was the place everybody could.
Absolutely understand, and you know, so I get that part. But you know, this is at least an effort going on here to make sure it's coming back, because the thing is to bring the information back to CAC, bring the information back to different community groups. If it's something that causes enough concern, then the voices get raised. And I think that's, you know, that's part of the process. It's, you know, a great example. I think I talked to Larry about this one, was the Quail Hollow or Quail Corners rezoning. Their rezoning was 2 years ago.
So 2 years ago, there wasn't much of a fuss about it. I mean, there might have been some, but not much of a fuss about it. And what happens is, 2 years later, the ground gets cleared and all of a sudden, next door goes into classic next door mode with what the heck is going on.
Right.
There's a short-term memory problem going on here too. But that's part of the awareness to, try and keep people aware and to engage them. So it's a difficult process, but as you said, normally it's people, if it's happening a block away from me, I'm concerned. If it's happening 2 blocks away from me, as long as it doesn't mess with traffic, I really don't care.
Right. Well said, Steve. Okay,
Well, the only last thing I'll say on this topic is the reason I'm bringing all this up is because you sent us,
Mhm.
and that really is the outcome. What are we?
right.
That has a lot to do with the decisions about. which-
Well, you were fortunate. You were fortunate. You saw the survey. They have not.
Oh, okay,
I don't think. They will tonight.
okay. Well, I didn't
That's all right.
steal your thought.
I have a comment. Something I noticed when she was talking about that all of these other departments now that she's got to work with. I question whether basically they're going to be just spending all of their time essentially marketing. Marketing is different than engagement. Marketing is more of a one-way sales thing, oh, look what Raleigh Water's doing, rather than engagement where they're actually interested in hearing back from community and having community take part in what's going on. I don't need any more marketing. I have tons of that. I mean, I can find any of that I want, but if they're going to listen, or if they're going to, you're going to get one minute. You did a great job. Thank you, company. It's kind of saying. It's not you said one.
They're talking about having a separate meeting, city council meeting, so that they can go back to what they used to do. And I think they made that decision, but what that CED,
If they're gonna put it, we want to do it at 2 meetings.
Right.
But that's, that was just kind of the thing that just sort of floated across when she was talking about them having to take it on all of these different parts.
Well, that's the point that Larry's made a couple different times,
Yeah,
is we've had a shift. It used to be the bottom up,
yeah,
and now it's top down.
that's weird.
I've had a request from the remote audience that you guys need to enunciate or get closer to the computer. Hate to make you less comfortable, but. Hey, Matt. Okay. Any more discussion?
Well, I can stay on a soapbox about this forever and ever, because I did what she did for a much smaller city for 20 years. And the issue is people don't turn out. If you're creating opportunities for people to come and speak, but they don't see that has any impact on the decisions that are being made, then people don't go to planning meetings. And I think that's where the disconnect is at this point. And the thing about CACs was because there were more people that came, and there was a voice, and there was money, and there was a connection, that people saw that when they came to a meeting and they said something, it had an impact. And that's where you build community engagement. And there's a real disconnect here in Raleigh, and I've only lived here for 3.5 years, but there's a real disconnect between people speaking and what they say being taken into account, even with the new council members, in my opinion.
The one thing we always need to remember is that Raleigh is probably one of the fastest growing cities in the nation, and nobody knows how to handle this kind of growth. You look at other cities that are in the Rust Belt, and they wish they had the problems that we had. And,
Other cities have figured it out.
maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but the other thing is some of these new council members are very inexperienced. I think we had a short video from one of them that, I don't know if you'll share that tonight here or just send it out, but she down in Denver trying to learn how they do things up there, whether they do it well there or not. Denver has a whole bunch of problems, but it takes decades to really get good at some of these things. We have incredible issues and brand new people a job. And hopefully the bureaucrats, the people that are employed are the ones that we need to be really interacting with as well as the elected people.
Does that mean our time is up?
No, trying to do something for the viewers, but I can't find it. Oh, well. All right. Another thing we'll experiment with. I think that's pretty much it for tonight. I think we accomplished really what I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to get both the Community Engagement Board together with the City Community Engagement Group to give you guys a feel for how they're interacting. And they're both out there and kind of finding their way, and they're definitely trying to find their way. The best thing for us is probably to push the Community Engagement Board to do what we'd like to see them do for CACs, is they then turn around and then work with Taisha, who gets reported back to council. That's the most effective thing for us, other than writing directly to the councilors, and that will come. For meetings coming about, I should be aware that I'm not sure what our topic is going to be for May, because there's a couple of really key things coming about. The number one thing is the budget. I'm hoping that the budget includes more for Midtown instead of getting shuffled off later and later. We have a list of high demand projects, and I'd like to see them get moved sooner rather than later in the budget.
What about the district, the Midtown district?
Midtown Municipal Service Group. It's in the works. It's in the works. They're supposed to do a feasibility study being handled by Tara Robbins from Midtown Raleigh Alliance. She has done her paperwork. She has submitted to the city at least a month ago and has gotten nothing back at this point. They were supposed to give her a check, I think, for $16,000 to do the feasibility study in the same way that they did Blue Ridge, I think. So that's what they're mimicking. So it's in the pipeline someplace. I don't think we'll hear about it probably in a couple of months, but that's one way of trying to generate additional tax money for the city to do local projects. I'm not a fan of it. The other thing the city is trying to do with some of the projects downtown, you should be aware of, is what they call development agreements, where the developer contributes to a project that the city can't afford to do, but it's reimbursable over time back to the developer. I'd love to have the same kind of deal offered to me. It seems like, it's a golden egg, but that's in the works. And you're going to see that as discussions continue for the 30-story buildings that are going to be at the edge of the city on top of a Smoky Hollow Park. The city cannot afford the park, so they're looking for a partner. I think they can do better in the partnership that they're trying to establish. So details there yet to come. I've written a blog about it already. You can visit Liberal Raleigh. I've written a blog. I encourage you both to follow that particular one. I can't remember I think it's V5422, I think. There isn't much in the development pipeline right now because, as most of you know, it's hard to get loans. It's hard to get materials. So most of the developers have slowed their pace down, which is fortunate for us. There are a couple of key projects coming about, one of which is going to be where the bridge is going to land. I think I've talked about this one before. And they're asking for 8 stories on a piece of ground that's there's barely enough property there for the building. And everything around it is 2 stories. There's no justification for it that I can see. It's gonna be a terrible stormwater problem. It's right in the, if not in the floodplain, it's in the wetlands. And there's a big disparity in terms of ground leveling. It has quite there's a big raise in geography, I guess, as you approach the apartments to protect them from floodwater. I'm not sure how they're going to work this building into it, but nobody's even asking that question. So it's something to watch, something you'll hear from me about it, but that's on top of my agenda. Anything else for anybody else that I have missed? Budget for Midtown, MSD, good as well. Take the blur off. Yeah, I look for taking the blur off and somehow I can't find it. We'll get to that next time. We'll do better next time.
I put the tip in the chat for you on how to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Go to the video, the little arrow next to your video. You choose your background.
So where it says stop video,
Yeah.
there's a little up arrow. If you press that, and then
Yeah.
there you go. You got it. Yeah. Yeah.
It works for me when I'm in my pajamas trying to do a meeting, but I have to be civil now. Okay,
We'll have our superpowers.
thanks, Lindsay.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
Linda said that gate has been fixed.
Who was that? What was that?
Fixed. The playground.
Oh, terrific. All we have to do now is worry about the gate to get in and out of the park. I think that's it. Oh, there is one other thing. Let me share screen one more time. Oh, come on, not sharing this. They can see the screen, but they can't really see the screen. Okay, this is the survey I was talking about earlier. I do want to get a sense of direction we're going to be going. So I'm going to hand it out to the audience here. I'm also going to email it to everybody on our mailing list. And just take your time, give me back your opinions, and we'll discuss it at the next meeting, decide what we're going to do next. We are going to have an in-person meeting for the next 2 months, for May and for June. And hopefully by June, we can get it right. So I appreciate everybody's patience tonight. I know that it was my mistake. I think we missed the early part of the police report because I had volume down too low. But Ted and I had played with some of the settings, and then we played with them again tonight, and hopefully we'll get it right. So I think we're about done unless there's something else that I've overlooked. Okay. Stop sharing. And checking the budget. Michelle, thank you, Larry. Okay, well, I'm going to finish early tonight for a change, which is nice. Maybe that's the benefit of in-person meetings.